Hello, my name is Ken Stevenson, and you may know my wife, Dee, who sits at the gift card table every Sunday. We have long given regularly to the Endowment Fund, and we've even arranged a legacy gift for when we're gone. Of course, the Endowment Fund is for the long-term vitality of our community, but it also contributes to our lives right now. And that's done through yearly projects, which are funded by earnings from the Endowment Fund. And there's one such project that awaits our return to coffee hour. Thanks to Barbara Lamb's leadership and the Endowment support, there's a beautiful new patio just outside the Greg McKendry Fellowship Hall. And I look forward, when we get back to the congregation, to enjoying coffee and conversation with you there in the fellowship hall and the new fellowship patio. In the meantime, I encourage everyone to give generously to the Endowment Fund. It really contributes to the life of the church now and helps ensure that we're going to be in this community for the long haul. Thank you.
Why give to the Endowment Fund? Even small contributions can help the fund grow, and that growth will allow us to fund projects that are out of reach of what the annual church budget can support. These projects have enhanced our community and its mission, and with your help will continue to do so. So we ask you to please give, dig deep. Thank you.
We're Cindy and Ken Moffat. I've included a bequest for the Endowment Fund in my will, where it can help meet the church's needs in the future. The fund needs to be larger for a church of our size. Please consider donating to this important resource. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Pat Bang, and I wanted to support the endowment. Giving to the endowment is a way to memorialize beloved members of the congregation. It is a way to honor them in perpetuity.
Hi, I'm Stephanie C., and I give to the endowment because at a time when standing on the side of love may seem like a radical concept to some, our church has risen to that challenge again and again, and I want to help ensure that it will continue to do so. I hope you'll join me.
I firmly believe that every little bit helps, and many little bits add up to a lot.
Gather we now into this space, this time when the wheel turns and the veil shatters. Gather we now to remember, to grieve, to prophecy, to complete our harvest before the long dark comes. Gather we now to tell the old stories and sing the old songs, to be, as we have always been, the voice of our people eternal. Gather we now to celebrate that which was, that which is, and that which will be. Gather we now as we have always done, united by story and bound by love.
This is Ember.
This is Parker.
This is Priya.
This is the lighting of the chalice.
For the Web of Life by Paul Sprecher. We light this chalice for the web of life which sustains us, for the sacred circle of life in which we have our being, for the earth, the sky above and below, and for our Mother Earth, and for the mystery.
Gathered here in the mystery of the hour.
Gathered here in one strong body. Gathered here in the struggle and the power. Spirit, draw near. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour.
Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. This is our great covenant.
doth be near. When the winter follows after, teach our spirits not to fear. Hold us in your steady mercy, Lady of the turning year.
Sister of the evening starlight, in the foolish shadows stay, here among us till the far light of tomorrow's dawning break. Hold us in your steady mercy, Lady of the turning day.
Mother of the generations, in whose love all life is worth, everlasting celebrations bring our labor safe to birth. Hold us in your steady mercy, Lady of the turning earth. Goddess of all time's progression, stand with us when we engage, hands and hearts to end oppression, writing history's fairer page. Hold us in your steady mercy, Lady of the turning age.
The story I have to share with you today is adapted from one called Behind the Mask by Yang Suk Choi, and it begins with a kid named Kimin. Now, it was just 2 days until Halloween when this story takes place, and Kimin had not decided yet what he wanted to be for Halloween. When he talked with his mom about it, and she decided to bring up 2 boxes from the basement. She said, "I'll leave these in your room so you can look through them in the morning. And be careful. They're grandfather's things, and some of them are valuable. They are family treasures. But maybe you'll find something in there that you want to use for your Halloween costume." Kimin knew that his grandfather had been a famous dancer in Korea. Still, he wished his mother hadn't brought the boxes and put them in his room. He wondered why they made him so uncomfortable. And then he remembered something that he thought he had buried. It was a memory of the last time he had seen his grandfather in Korea. Grandfather was old and didn't always recognize Kimin. Sometimes he called him by his uncle's name, but Kimin didn't mind. He really liked to sit and talk with him. And mostly, though, Grandfather just smiled at him. And that made Kimin feel good until one night when he couldn't sleep. He noticed that there was a light shining in from his grandfather's room. And he got up and he peeked in. And Grandfather was sitting on the floor with his back to Kimin. Grandfather turned around, but he looked scary. Kimin was terrified. And after that, he didn't want to be alone with his grandfather. He was still kind of frightened of him. And now, his grandfather had died. In the bright light of the morning, Grandfather's boxes were still right there. And Kimin told himself, well, I'll just look at the pictures that are in the boxes. And when he looked in, he saw pictures of himself and his grandfather, but also a lot of photos of Grandfather dancing. Pictures he had never seen of dancers wearing face masks performing before a crowd. And he wondered, are those photos of Grandfather? He became more curious and he began to look through the other boxes, and the other box was labeled Tal, and he wondered what that meant. And he lifted the lid, and there were traditional clothes like those worn by the dancers in Grandfather's photos. And then beneath the costumes were the masks. Some of them were smiling, some were frowning, some were fierce. They were fun to look at. And then he saw the face that had frightened him so much back when he had seen it in the middle of the night, and now it all made sense to Kimin. Grandfather had been wearing a mask that night. At school the next day, everybody was talking about Halloween and asking one another what they were going to be. Somebody was going to be an alligator, somebody else a witch, and then they asked Kimin what he was going to be, and he said, "Oh, I'm going to be my grandfather." The kids kind of laughed at that. Going in an old man, that doesn't sound very scary. But that didn't bother Kimin. He knew that they were wrong about that. So it was the day for trick-or-treating. He headed home after school, and he was looking forward to getting going. And he knew that it wasn't just a time for trick-or-treating, but also a time for honoring those who had died. So he lifted the mask that his grandfather had worn that scary night out of the box. And he looked into its face, and he felt as though his grandfather was speaking to him. Then he put it on and looked in the mirror, and he saw his grandpa as a mask dancer. And Kimin began to move around the room, dancing as his grandpa did in the photos. Kimin called goodbye to his mother, and he slipped out before she could see that he was wearing a family treasure. And when he got outside, there were other kids around, and an alligator said, "What are you?" And Kimin said, "I'm a mask dancer." And he started dancing, and the children watched in awe. Pretty soon, one of them asked, "Do you want to go trick-or-treating with us?" And the mask dancer nodded. And so they went from house to house as the mask dancer danced, and they filled their pockets with treats at every house they went to. Now, Kimin didn't know how it happened, but all of a sudden he tripped and he fell, face first. And his mask hit the ground with a thud. And quickly he took it off and looked at it. The nose was scratched, but he was okay. The mask had protected him. Now, Kimin's mother was waiting when he got home, and she said, "Oh, is that what you wore?" She looked surprised and then pleased until she saw the scratches on the mask. And Kimin's heart was beating so fast. And he started to tell his mother what had happened, and then the doorbell rang. And Kimin opened the door, and there stood all the other kids he had gone trick-or-treating with. "Something fell out of your mask when you took it off," they said. And the kids said, "What does it say?" And Kimin said, "I don't know, because it's written in Korean." And he handed it to his mother to read. She looked at it, and then she translated it aloud. "Kimin, behind the mask, my spirit remains. I want you to have it. Time will pass, and the mask will get old, but I will be with you always. Love, Grandfather." And later that night, Kimin and his mother hung Grandfather's mask on the wall above his bed. "I'm happy that you wanted to be your grandfather today," said his mother. "And don't worry about the mask. Grandfather would be happy that you found it." And in his heart, Kimin knew that that was true.
Hello, joy. In this quiet evening, listening to insects, I ask you to remember that we have some members of our church family in the hospital about to face different procedures, and a family that is trying to hold on through this whole COVID experience. I ask you to pray for them, to meditate for them, to hold them in the light, that they may have peace, wellness, and security, and that everything hopefully will be well. And so I'd like to read this thought in this time of darkness and light by Jackie James. Blackmail, blacklist, black mark, black Monday, black mood, black-hearted, black plague, black mass, black market. Good guys wear white, bad guys wear black. We fear black cats and the dark continent. But it's okay to tell a white lie. Lily white hands are coveted. It's great to be pure as the driven snow. Angels and brides wear white. Devil's food cake is chocolate, and angel food cake is white. We shape language, and we are shaped by it. In our culture, white is esteemed. It is heavenly, sun-like, clean, pure, immaculate, and innocent, and beautiful. At the same time, black is evil, wicked, gloomy, depressing, angry, and sullen. Ascribing negative and positive values to black and white enhances the institutionalization of this culture's racism. Let us acknowledge that the negative connotations of whiteness. White things can be soft, vulnerable, pallid, and ashen. Light can be blinding, bleaching, enervating. Conversely, we must acknowledge that darkness has a redemptive character, that in darkness there is power and beauty. The dark nurtured and protected us before our birth. Welcome, darkness. Don't be afraid of it or deny it. Darkness brings relief from the blinding sun, the scorching heat, from exhausting labor. Night signals permission to rest, to be with our loved ones, to conceive new life, to search our hearts, to remember our dreams. The dark of winter is a time of hibernation. Seeds grow in the dark, fertile soil of earth. The words black and dark don't need to be destroyed or ignored, only balanced and reclaimed in their wholeness. The words white and light don't need to be destroyed or ignored. Imagine a world that had only light or dark. We need both, dark and light, light and dark. Amen.
Good morning. My name is Claudia Presley, and I'm the Director of Administration here at TVUUC. Thank you for joining us today. Today is a Share the Plate Sunday. What that means is that our organization today, which is Imes Nature Center, and the TVUUC operating budget, will split any contributions that come in that are not marked as pledges. So we ask you to give generously. The ways you can give are to go to TVUUC/give, or you can text give to the number 73256, type in TVUUC and the amount that you would like to give. Once again, Thank you for joining us, and have a great day.
These Days by Lynn Unger. Anyone who tells you not to be afraid should have their head examined. Cities are burning. Hillsides are burning. And the dumpster fire of our common life is out of control. I wish I could tell you when it was going to get better. I wish I could promise that better was anywhere down the road. I miss dancing, bodies in something between conversation and flight. I miss singing the way we trusted the air that moved between us. I miss the casual assumption that everything would be all right in the morning. These days, I am trying to be buoyed by the smallest things. A ripe tomato, a smattering of rain. These days, I'm trying to remember that songs of lamentations are still songs.
Yes, anytime you're ready.
And now my senses and hear the earth call.
It's the end of October. The fields are bare, the leaves have fallen from the trees, and the skies are going gray and cold. It is the time of year when the earth has gone silent and dormant. While it is almost time for Halloween, it is also near the time of Samhain, the ancestor of Halloween, and which is also still celebrated today. Samhain, which translates to summer's end, began as a Gaelic festival marking the end of the harvest season and the beginning of winter, or the darker half of the year, as well as the beginning of the Celtic New Year. Traditionally, it is celebrated from October 31st to November 1st. Samhain was seen as a liminal time when the division between this world and the other world, the land of the gods, the goddess, the fae, the spirits, and things that go bump in the night, was at its thinnest, allowing spirits to pass through. Offerings of food and drink were left outside for them, and fires were lit for protection. The unwary traveler caught away from home on this night could expect to encounter any one or many ghosts that were everywhere and may or may not have been harmful to the living. During this period, all the world was in darkness and the dead were abroad. People were often cautioned that if they heard footsteps behind them on the night of Samhain, they shouldn't turn back because it may be a spirit following them. Samhain is still celebrated by modern earth-centered traditions, as well as some Unitarian Universalists. One of the sources of the Unitarian Universalist living tradition is the spiritual teachings of the earth-centered traditions, which celebrate the sacred circle of life and instruct us to live in harmony with the rhythms of nature. Samhain is one of the major festivals of the Wheel of the Year. For many pagans, the most important festival of them all. It's the third and final harvest festival of nuts and berries and a fire festival. All the harvest is in, all is complete. It is the end of the cycle of birth and growth. It is the point of death. The seeds of the harvest have fallen deep into the dark earth. They are unseen, dormant, and thus apparently lifeless. At Samhain, the dark half of the year commences. It is a magical time, for death is always followed by rebirth, and while this is the end of the old year, it is the beginning of the new year. For the Celts, the day did not begin at dawn, it began at sunset. It began with darkness. Light is always born out of darkness. They are inseparable, interdependent, and necessary. Darkness is fertile with all potential. With the beginning of this dark phase comes the opportunity to rest and reflect on the past and to dream of new beginnings. The seed now hidden in the earth will germinate in its season. Every year at this time, Samhain presents us with the opportunity to once more celebrate the cycle of death and rebirth. For many, Samhain is a time to reconnect with our ancestors and to honor those who have died. The family ancestors were honored and invited home, whilst harmful spirits were warded off. Food was prepared, and very often the spirits of the ancestors sought warmth around the fireside on this night. Fires were left lit in the grate to warm the spirits, and food was left out for them. Even though the ancestral ghosts were benign, all the ghosts may not have been. They needed some sort of appeasement in the form of ritual offerings on this night, ere they leave you with a trick. So long as the offering was forthcoming, the ghosts were happy and benevolent. But if the offering was withheld, another side of the ghost features was presented. Bad luck would descend on the household, and all would not be well in the coming year. The dark of the night was frightening to people, and the lack of the light only offered up the uncertainty of what might be lurking in the shadows. Since this was also the new year and the beginning of a new cycle, there was much uncertainty about a future that could not be seen as yet. All right, before I begin this next paragraph, apologies to those of you who do know Latin. I do not. Am, however, going to attempt to pronounce these words. Hic sunt draconis, here there be dragons, or the phrase here there be monsters, is in reference to a variety of phrases used by early European map makers to warn of great beasts or monsters abiding in unexplored locations on a map. Two of the examples of this are the Linux globe and the Borgia map. On the Linux globe, the eastern coast of Asia has that phrase, hic sunt draconis, or here be dragons. On the Borgia map, it bears a dragon figure across Asia, and the quite much longer phrase, hic etiam hominis magna cornua habentes, longitudine quaetar pedum, et sunt etiam serpentis tante magnitudinis ut unum bovin commodant in terram, or here also are men having large horns 4 feet long, and there are even serpents of such magnitude that they can eat an ox whole. The earliest use of this technique was the Ptolemy Atlas, which warns of hippos, elephants, and cannibals, oh my. Maybe those words served as a warning to the map's original users, and a kind of flourish from the map's artisan makers. To me, it seems to comment on the mystery of the terrain, as in, we don't know what's here, but maybe there are monsters. As I mentioned earlier, Samhain is a time when we reflect and honor our ancestors. And now here's a story about some of our Unitarian Universalist ancestors. In September 1938, Nazi Germany invaded the Sudetenland. Thousands of refugees fled south, some ending up in Prague. In the United States, the American Unitarian Association read about the occupation. Our church had strong ties to Czechoslovakia at the time, and there was a small but vibrant and thriving community there. The American Unitarian Association asked Waitstill Sharp, a Unitarian minister in Massachusetts, and his wife Martha, a social worker, to travel to Europe and try and help these refugees. Although Waitstill knew that they had asked 17 other ministers before they got to him and that they had all turned him down, the Sharps did not hesitate, and motivated by their faith and their moral outrage, the Sharps made the difficult decision to accept the charge. In February 1939, they left their young children in the care of the church community and departed for Europe. They left into an unknown and perilous future that was filled with dangers and already had people performing monstrous deeds to where they were going. I'm sure they were scared, but still they went. Working closely with the Quakers, they assisted hundreds of refugees by providing money and other humanitarian aid. Only a few weeks after the Sharps' arrival, Nazi Germany invaded, occupied, and annexed the remainder of Czechoslovakia, including Prague. The Sharps needed police to help them enter their offices that morning, and yet the couple decided to stay so they could start assisting individual immigration cases wherever they could. The Sharps took risks and faced great danger. In one case, Martha accompanied a group of refugees fleeing Nazi territory on a long train towards freedom in Great Britain. She managed to prevent their arrests by invoking her protective status as an American citizen and putting her body on the line. By late summer, with their every move being tracked by the Gestapo, it was clear they could not remain safely in Prague. They returned to the United States at the end of August 1939, just days before World War II broke out. They also, however, returned again in 1940 to continue helping refugees out of the Nazi-occupied Europe. During this time, the American Unitarian Association realized it was going to need official-looking documents if it was going to issue travel papers and other documents, and the Flaming Chalice was then born. The symbol had its origins in a logo designed by Austrian refugee Hans Deutsch for the Unitarian Service Committee during World War II, and it was used as the stamped image on those documents to help make them look official. According to the Unitarian Service Committee's director, Charles Joy, Deutsch took his inspiration from the chalices of oil burned on ancient Greek and Roman altars. To Deutsch, the image had the connotation of sacrifice and love. To Unitarian Universalists today, the flaming chalice is a symbol of our faith, the sacred, the quest for truth, the warmth of community, the light of reason, and the light in the world offering hope to those who are afraid. So we are heading into the new year for some of us. For the rest of us, it'll be a little bit later on. We're heading into a new political cycle where we will either elect the leaders we have now or elect new leaders. And there's a lot of uncertainty about that. We're going from the light half of the year into the dark half, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. The dark, this gives us a time to rest. It gives us a time to slow down, which at times we really do need. But there is a lot of uncertainty and a lot we don't know about what the future is going to bring, especially the near future. And when you don't know, and when there's a lot of really bad scenarios, it's scary. And there's a lot of scary things on right now with the government and the virus and what's going to happen with that. It's also scary for me and my friends, and I know for y'all, with some of the rights that may be stripped away from women, LGBT, immigrants, and on and on. So there's a lot of reasons to be scared right now. And while, to the best of my knowledge, I don't think we have the monsters of old, like werewolves and vampires, we do have people doing monstrous things these days. And we have the oligarchs and the billionaires and the ultra-rich who hoard their money like dragons of old sitting on their gold. If they could just use some of it to help others who are needy, they would still have so much, but instead they hoard it. We have real-life trolls on the internet. That's one of their purposes, is to sow discord and to help with the divisiveness. We also have ogres, and ogres are, the definition is a cruel and terrible person, and we have many of those in the current days and times. We have ICE agents who have taken children from their parents and put them in cages, like the child catcher in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. We have the Proud Boys and members of the alt-right and white supremacists clamoring for a new civil war. There are things that are very scary right now, and it's okay to be scared. People are scared that their marriages will no longer be valid. People are scared that their insurance is going to be stripped away or they're going to be homeless. And that's one of my fears, but I'm speaking from privilege. There's already too many people that are out on the street that are underinsured, that are facing these horrors every day. Myself, like I said, personally, I have pre-existing conditions with my health issues. And if my medicine gets disrupted, which, I mean, say there's civil unrest, or say that I get kicked off of insurance because of that, I may die. And so that, yeah, that's pretty scary. And during this pandemic, as some of you may as well have thought and been scared about this as well. I mean, what happens if I catch the virus? Will I be okay like some people? Or what happens if my parents or my grandparents or my child gets it? Will they be okay? There's a lot of sobering, scary stuff right now. Like, will you have to say goodbye to a loved one over the phone? Like I said, it's okay to be scared. If you aren't, you're looking through rose-colored glasses. And being scared, sometimes it's overwhelming. But you're not alone. When it gets overwhelming, it's rough, and sometimes I just want to hide under the blankets like I did as a kid. I mean, I had to pull the blankets up to my neck when I went to sleep as a child, because if I did that, then that meant the vampire couldn't bite my neck. And sometimes I wish that I could just stay underneath those blankets and just be scared. And sometimes that's all I can do, is just be scared and be okay with it. And one of the things that keeps me going is knowing that I'm not alone, that we're all scared. And in knowing that, I can reach out to people in this congregation, friends, and let them know that I'm scared. And we can support each other. So, yeah, with all this stuff going on, it is very hard to be brave. And sometimes the bravest thing that you can do is to get out of bed in the morning. But if you're not able to do that, that's okay. Take your time, sit with it, and just be, because sometimes that's all you can do with that scary monster that's looking over your shoulder or walking behind you. One of the things that keeps me going is hope. And I'm going to quote Howard Zinn right now. Howard Zinn said, "To be hopeful in bad times is not just foolishly romantic. It is based on the fact that human history is a history not only of cruelty, but also of compassion, sacrifice, courage, kindness. What we choose to emphasize in this complex history will determine our lives. If we see only the worst, it destroys our capacity to do something. If we remember those times and places, and there are so many, where people have behaved magnificently, this gives us the energy to act, and at least the possibility of sending this spinning top of a world in a different direction. And if we do act, in however small way, we don't have to wait for some grand utopian future. The future is an infinite succession of presents. And to live now as we think human beings should live, in defiance of all that is bad around us, is itself a marvelous victory." And that's being brave in the face of a lot of scary things. And that quote is something that I try and remember, that sometimes that even very small thing of holding space for someone who is scared, giving that person a ride to the store, making that call to make sure your friend voted, making that call to make sure they're okay in a world that is full of uncertainties right now. So as we come to the close of this sermon, it's okay to be scared. There's a lot to be scared of. There's a lot of things to be uncertain of. And once again, you are not alone. Things are very heavy right now. So I hope that you take inspiration from your ancestors. I hope you have courage, because if you are scared, you are probably about to do something very brave. I hope you will support each other. And when it gets overwhelming, I hope you'll take the time you need and rest so that you can continue on some other time. Hope you have a happy Halloween and that the things that go bump in the night do not get you. I hope you have a blessed Samhain. Blessed be. Amen. May it be so. Prophetic Church, the world awaits your liberating ministry. Live boldly in the power of love. Proclaim the truth that makes us free. Go in peace.
Hi, I'm Diane Fox. I'm chair of this year's TVUUC online 2020 online auction. I hope that everybody has received at this point their postcard that says that we're open for donations, or seen some of the other advertising saying that we're open for donations. This is an important way to support the church. And there are some donations coming in, and we very much appreciate that. The auction is looking for jewelry or baskets on the theme, or handmade items, or things for kids. There are a couple of changes this year, as we cannot have events that are one-on-one. So, or with groups. We really need to stick with the COVID protocols, and we have created, instead of dinners with seats at the table, we have created dinners delivered. So if someone wanted to create a dinner, you can determine how many servings you'd like to donate. So let's say with 2 servings, and that actually has been something that's been requested. So you have 2 servings, you would make a dinner with 2 servings and deliver it to one person, and one person would bin on it, instead of multiple people with different seats. The other thing that's changed is that events and parties, etc., lectures, all need to be done online on Zoom. And we hope that you will think of ways that you can offer either the event or that you did before in some form or fashion, or a new event through the auction. If you have any questions, please feel free to email auction@tvuuc.org. And one of the auction committee members will answer your questions quickly. We're not looking for large furniture items because we have no storage unless you can store and deliver your item, and then that's just something that we would take on a case-by-case basis. We really appreciate anything that you can offer, and we're really excited about the auction, which will take place December 3rd through December 5th. Thank you.
And now, as your last act of worship this morning, text, call, or email your neighbor and check in on them. Have a safe Sunday.